coast to coast, direct from Austin. You're listening to the Alex Jones Broadcasting Network.
Big Brother, mainstream media, government cover-ups. You want answers? Well, so does he. He's Alex Jones on the GCN Radio Network. And now, live from Austin, Texas, Alex Jones.
The full report is up on Infowars.com from last night's nightly news, but I want to kick this transmission off by interrupting my own transmission with this transmission on Obama preparing to take over the telecommunication systems, including the internet and your smartphone. Here it is. And finally tonight on Infowars Nightly News, I want to break down a story that showed up in headlines across the country and even as far away as England tonight. New alert system gives president special code for emergency messages. That's out of the Hill. The Daily Mail got it right, saying new emergency alert system will give Obama the power to flip a switch and address the entire nation at once. The Washington Post described it as something out of George Orwell's 1984. I'm one of the first people in the United States to start warning of this as far back as 1996, because broadcast engineers in radio stations that I was working in had been part of the Texas Association of Broadcast meetings where the feds, under Clinton's orders, were preparing to have it ready by 1999 so Bill Clinton could start overriding radio and TV broadcast, VHF, UHF, AM, FM, and be able to force his messages onto the air like something out of the old Soviet Union. A literal broadcast kill switch is what it did. It didn't allow the stations to tune to an emergency channel to put the president on. It had it where the systems couldn't work and were overridden by federal pieces of equipment at the tower and at the broadcast site. And I interviewed on air, changing their voices, multiple broadcast engineers, one of them very high level up. And since then, in films like Police State 2000, I exposed it in 1999. Now, in previous reports in the last 19 years, we've broken down the evil authoritarian applications of all of these systems. But I want to recap some of those for you now. This allows the state to begin the process of openly having state-run media, not just covertly funding the dinosaur media. And the Pentagon got the law changed last year to be able to engage in domestic deception or psyops here in the United States. But its real intention is to be able to cut off anything embarrassing, like Rand Paul and his filibuster being cut off across the world and across the United States in channels carrying U.S. media when he was engaged in his filibuster. That's what this is all about. Again, even the Washington Post, that we have linked here in our article from 2011, described it as something out of Orwell's 1984. This was already in place by then. It was in place in the late 90s, but expanded to be on smartphones, all computers, you name it. My phone, my Apple iPhone 5, that's really a portable computer, turns on now when the Obama alerts come in. And it's always about hurricanes or floods, something reasonable. But that could be done locally. It's setting the precedent so that people get accustomed to it so we can begin to get the political messages. It was floated by the Association of Broadcasters nationally and right here in Texas back in 1996-97 that, again, there would be government programming, not just PSAs, routinely overriding hours a day. And that's what had the association so upset, and so they were able to get some of it backed off. That is not the case now. The feds are pushing for digital license plates that only cost a few dollars. The technology's gotten so cheap that have messages about who's wanted and images of people on your license plates. That is just part of the report. It's got a few minutes left. The full report is up on Infowars.com on this live Wednesday, the 16th day of July, 2014 transmission. I will also, later in the hour, air the entire report because it's so important for our affiliates to know what's going on. I know most of them are aware of what's happening, but this is a big deal. And we need to treat it as such and try to make this a controversy. Because if you don't make tyranny a controversy, it becomes the norm, and you become a slave. I'm going to take phone calls in the first hour. We've got Abby Johnson, who was unable to come on the show last week from here in Austin because of all the traffic being shut down with Barack Obama being in town. She was so stuck in her car she couldn't even get to a landline. Heading up a group that investigates Planned Parenthood and the fact that they target minorities. So we'll probably be called racist for trying to save Hispanic and black babies, but nevertheless, we will engage in the racism here today. Now, if I was a Nazi collaborator like George Soros, I get ADL awards, but side issue. Or Schwarzenegger, I get ADL awards, but side issue. And 2 + 2 = 5, Obama said, and you didn't build your business, and raising the debt limit doesn't raise the debt limit. I know I just keep going back to that. I'm just realizing I'm a bad person. And Steve Watson has an article out today. Majority reject Obama policies across the board because they're bad, not because of racism. You know, it's just funny that we have to say that. I was thinking about the borders collapsing and how horrible that's going to be for all Americans. It's a no-brainer on every front. And that I kind of shrink from even bringing it up because of political correctness. Even I am under mind control. We should be angry that we've been conditioned that it's racist to say we should not let third world countries collapse into us. And sure, the feds have got robots online that go around posing as racist, you know, calling Hispanics names in all the forums. And we've tracked a lot of it back. Most of it is bots doing it just to make us all infight. I mean, we're in a science fiction movie, people. We are in a science fiction movie. And the globalists are manipulating the human condition publicly. I mean, this whole telecommunications takeover that I'm going to cover at the bottom of the hour, where they're saying, oh, you're going to start seeing Obama on TV, hearing him on the radio and on your smartphone. It's not just going to be text. He's going to be breaking in with announcements. I told you years ago they put the system in, and I said when they get ready to start using it, get ready. And first it'll be hurricanes and earthquakes and things to set the precedent. It's reasonable, and then it's going to be political announcements. Just like they started 20 years ago putting up those highway signs for Amber Alerts and Alzheimer's patients, and now they have do not drink and walk or you'll be arrested in Austin, or call this number to report illegal guns. And then people don't know that what guns are illegal. Most TV shows are based in fantasy land where guns are all banned and you go to jail for having a gun, you know, the cop shows. And so the cops come. I mean, it's mind control literally operating off of a public that doesn't know where their butt is with both hands. I mean, I'm sorry to use terms like that, but that's the only way to describe it. I mean, they're just such victims, such domesticated, pathetic, jellyfish-like, unbelievably mindless, having no idea that they're being circled by wolves and sharks that are dragging innocent, mindless, weak people off into the system to be torn to shreds, slowly and deliberately and disgustingly. I don't know how else to describe all of this. And that's the thing about tyranny, is that when you put up with it, it becomes completely over the top every time. And it is now absolutely over the top. Over the top. And it's going to get more over the top. That's what over the top means. And I know I'm stating the obvious here, but it's just hitting me all the time. My gosh, this is really all happening, and it's going to get crazier, and it's all going to come true, our worst nightmares, because you let evil people run things. Welcome to my nightmare. I know you're gonna like it. To quote Alice Cooper. The globalists like nightmares. That's their dreams. I've read a lot of criminology, and I've interviewed a lot of the top psychiatrists and psychologists. I forget who she is, her name. I heard her on Coast to Coast years ago. I'd seen her on Discovery Channel, History Channel, We need to look it up and remember. I had her on a few years ago, and I heard her on George Norrie for like 3 hours, and I got her on for 2 hours one day. And she's one of the most famous criminologists, psychologists. I forget her name. Just look up famous psychologists to serial killers, and her name will come up top. That's for the guys, so we can get her on, because I keep wanting to get her on. I keep forgetting to look it up. And you know, I've probably only read 20 books or so. I mean, that's not that many on the criminology of serial killers and people like that. Sounds like a lot. It's not. But the overwhelming thing is that a lot of them have nightmares and are like, basically think they're being attacked by demons all the time. Whether you believe that's real or not, this is the archetype that they're going through. And the only time they feel good and the only time they feel satisfied is when they've got a 5-year-old child tied down, torturing them for 6 weeks, and, quote, using them up, sucking their energy out, torturing them to death slowly. Until they're not even horrified anymore and can't beg anymore and can't be in total horror anymore. Then they kill them. And that's what, you know, in authoritarian regimes, totalitarian regimes, but prisons and dungeons are about, is a supper of Satan. It's a feeding off the energy